Hey everyone, welcome back. This deep dive, we're looking at the ATP Finals in Turin.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, two matches that I think really showcase
Yeah,
just how much the mental game plays into
absolute.
this crazy sport. We've got Jannik Sinner,
Oh, yeah.
our world number one, playing on home turf.
Right.
And then we've got Daniil Medvedev, who
Yeah.
wasn't really having the best time out there.
It really does make you think about the contrast, right? I mean, you've got Sinner riding high after those big wins in Australia and at the U.S. Open. And then you've got Medvedev, who just seems to be struggling with just the weight of expectation.
Yeah, and you could really feel that energy. I mean, during Sinner's match against Alex de Minaur,
Oh, yeah.
it was electric. De Minaur was making his debut at the tournament,
Wow.
and the crowd was going wild. I heard that people were even wearing orange to match Sinner's hair.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, that home court advantage is a real thing.
Yeah,
I mean, just imagine having all that energy behind you, you know? Not even just the cheering, but just knowing that you're representing your city, your country, all those people.
right.
It can really boost a player's confidence, especially in a high-stakes environment like this.
And Sinner definitely seemed to feed off of it.
Yeah.
He started strong,
Yeah.
then had kind of a little bit of a wobble in the second set,
Yeah.
but ultimately pulled off a pretty decisive win, 6-3, 6-4.
Really decisive.
But here's where things get kind of interesting. Did you know that Sinner's actually playing under a bit of a cloud right now?
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's appealing a decision about two positive drug tests from earlier this year.
Wow.
And the final ruling is expected early next year.
Okay.
So there's a lot hanging in the balance for him.
Wow, it's incredible how these players can just block out that kind of distraction.
Yeah.
Imagine having to deal with that, the potential consequences.
Right.
It takes a lot of mental toughness to compartmentalize and just go out there and perform at that level.
It really does. Speaking of mental toughness,
Huh.
maybe the lack thereof,
Right.
let's talk about Daniil Medvedev.
Oh, boy.
He did not have a good time against Taylor Fritz,
He did not.
losing a straight set 6-4, 6-3.
Mm.
But honestly, the loss itself
Right.
wasn't even the most striking part.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It was his behavior on the court.
Yeah.
He completely melted down.
Yeah, there were moments where you could just feel the frustration coming off of him.
Yeah.
His body language, the way he was slamming his racket,
Yeah.
arguing with the umpire.
Yeah.
He even got a code violation,
Right.
which for anyone who doesn't follow tennis, that's like a formal warning for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah, and then there was that moment where he pretended to return serve with the wrong side of his racket.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost comical,
It was.
but also a little bit concerning, right?
I know. It's like, what is going on there?
Yeah, like what's happening in his head.
Exactly. It's easy to laugh it off. Like, it's just this funny moment.
Right.
But when you think about everything that's going on, the pressure he's under, a tough string of losses,
Yeah.
it kind of starts to paint a different picture. These outbursts, even the ones that seem lighthearted,
Right.
they can be a sign that something's really off, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not just like a one-off thing either. He's actually talked about this. Like in a recent interview, he even said that he feels zero pleasure being on the court.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? Going
Yeah.
out there every time and just knowing that the thing that you used to love
Right.
just feels like a burden.
It's got to be tough.
Yeah.
And it really makes you wonder, what does that do to your game?
Yeah.
Can you even perform at your best when you're feeling like that?
That's a really good question. And it's something that sports psychologists are actually starting to study a lot more. There's this understanding that mental well-being is just as important as physical fitness.
Mhm.
When it comes to performance, I mean, if you're constantly fighting these negative thoughts and emotions,
Right.
it's going to affect everything. Your ability to make decisions under pressure.
Yeah. So what's the answer then? How do you get yourself out of that?
Well, there's no easy fix, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's really complex, and it usually involves, a bunch of different approaches.
Okay.
Sometimes players need to take a break,
Yeah.
just step away from the intensity of competition,
Uh,
maybe rediscover why they love the game in the first place. Sometimes it's about working with a sports psychologist
Right.
to really dig into those underlying issues.
Yeah.
Maybe learn some coping mechanisms or build up their mental resilience.
It's interesting, because we're talking about Medvedev, but I want to shift gears for a second and talk about Taylor Fritz's performance.
Yeah.
I mean, he was up against an opponent who was clearly struggling,
Absolutely.
but he still had to maintain his composure
Right.
in all that chaos.
Yeah.
How do you think he managed to stay so focused and pull off that win?
You know, Fritz's mental toughness was just remarkable in that match. I mean, he wasn't fazed at all by any of Medvedev's outbursts.
It seemed like he almost found it funny.
Yeah, like he was amused by it, but that doesn't mean he wasn't taking it seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
he was completely locked in, sticking to his strategy,
Oh.
never letting anything Medvedev did disrupt his game.
And you know those crazy long rallies they had at the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
One went for like 26 shots and then the other one for 30.
That's insane.
It's insane. Mentally draining for both of them.
Yeah.
Did you see any particular strategy that Fritz was using in those rallies?
I think the key for Fritz was patience. You know, he wasn't trying to force these risky winners.
Right.
He was playing smart and consistent tennis, basically forcing Medvedev to make the errors.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like he was using Medvedev's frustration against him,
Yeah.
just waiting for him to overhit or make a mistake.
So it's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
We've got Sinner at the top of his game, Medvedev kind of battling his inner demons, and then Fritz showing this incredible resilience and focus. It really highlights the range of experiences that these players go through.
It really does. It's so interesting to see how different their mental states are.
Yeah.
Even though they're all at this elite level, it just goes to show you that tennis isn't just about physical skill. It's about mastering your mind, too.
Makes you think, if you were Medvedev, what would you do? How do you get back to that place where you actually enjoy the game when it's clearly become such a grind?
That's the big question, isn't it? And there isn't really like a magic solution. It's
Yeah.
different for everybody. Some players might just need a break,
Right.
Get away from everything, reconnect with family and friends, maybe find some other interests.
Right.
Sometimes it's about working with a mental coach
Yeah.
to learn how to deal with the pressure and negative thoughts.
It's almost like they need to fall back in love with the game.
Yeah, exactly. Rediscover that initial joy. Remember why they started playing in the first place.
Right. The pure joy of hitting the ball.
That's on
Competition.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance,
Yeah.
The dedication and discipline it takes to compete at that level,
Yeah.
but not losing sight of the love for the game.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into these matches,
Yeah.
what's the big takeaway you hope our listeners are thinking about?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that even at the highest level of professional tennis,
Yeah.
it's just as much a mental game as it is physical.
Right.
We see these incredible athletes making these amazing shots,
Uh-huh.
but we have to remember that they're human beings too.
Yeah.
Dealing with so much pressure expectations, and sometimes they even lose that passion for the sport that's their whole life.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. I think next time we see Medvedev or any other player struggling,
Yeah,
there's a lot more going on than what we see on the surface.
absolutely.
And maybe if we can remember that human side of it,
Mm-hmm.
it makes us appreciate their achievements even more.
I totally agree.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ATP Finals. We'll see you next time.